Hello everyone, welcome to my Session 5 teaching memo. Winter has returned in Poughkeepsie. Dr. Allora and I walked in Kingston Saturday in support of education. Thought I'd share a little picture with you. There we are. What a lovely couple we are. Notice I have my Patriots hat on. The walk was in support of education. I was a little disappointed. A board member from New Paltz spoke and convoluted the purpose of the march, which was to give support to public education as opposed to a voucher system, which is proposed, money going away from public schools to private schools and charter schools. So she got up and talked about opting out of testing and eliminating the Common Core, which really had nothing to do with what the gathering was about. Public educators are nervous about the talk of more financial support for students attending private charter schools or money going to private schools, as I mentioned. My issue with that is the same with the opt-out movement. Those who will be leaving for private schools will be those parents who are savvy enough to navigate the system. This typically does not include parents living with the stress that comes from poverty. Those parents aren't even thinking about opting out of testing. So what happens is the students that are struggling are the ones taking the assessments, and so we are getting a fuzzy and unclear and an invalid picture of actually how our students in schools are performing. So that's my little speech before we go into Session 5. This is a reminder that there are 10 of you who still have to go into syllabus start here and fill out the academic integrity statement. It's simple, it's easy, but it's mandatory, so do it. I've received several emails questioning the revised and modified discussion board rubrics, and students are feeling penalized. I saw that in the feedback you gave me. By the way, I want to thank those folks who took the time to do the feedback survey, that some folks are upset that they feel like they're being penalized on the discussion boards for not making their post by the deadline. And you have to understand that a discussion board is different than a normal assignment. And I do not penalize anyone for handing in assignments late. The only thing I do is that I close the discussion board because I don't monitor it after 2 weeks, and most of you don't either. And the thing about, giving you as part of the rubric that you lose points after 3 days, and that a lot of you don't work and you have children, and I understand that. That's why I modified the rubric so that you have up to the first Sunday to make your initial post and still get an A. So I don't see where the argument is about you're losing points. You still get an A. I mean, the fact that somebody posts within the first 3 days, to me, that deserves an A+. And you have to look at that and say, okay, an A+. So you're not losing points. I mean, if you're talking about, if I post this on time, I should get an A+. Well, that's not the way it works, and you knew it up front. So it's something that if you feel motivated enough to get an A+, then you'll post early. And just a reminder that the Turo guideline is that every online course should require at least 9 hours of work per week. So just keep that in mind. I want to reiterate that you are being graded on the quality of your response posts. If you are just praising your classmates or making comments unrelated to our topic, or just one sentence that says, oh yeah, I think that's a good idea, remember, at least 4 of your responses must connect to our readings, my presentation, or other relevant materials. And responding to my posts, regardless of who they may be addressed to also counts as one of these posts. So talking to Dr. Tom is a good thing. Finally, check my comments on your initial discussion board post. When you upload your initial discussion board post, you'll get 100. Everyone gets 100. But I make comments on your APA. So many of you are still making APA errors. You should not leave graduate school without knowing how to do proper APA. Okay, talking about Section 4, the culturally relevant math discussion board is closed, and I have to say that I'm very happy with your responses. I began thinking that no one in the field is writing about culturally relevant math. And so I hope you all have found the activities that you will use in your classroom, whether it is the Mayan and other ancient cultures or community mapping and other local cultural lessons that many of you are planning to use. And that's what it's all about. The EdTPA will downgrade you if you don't make some connection to your students' cultural and or community assets. I'm always fascinated with the way discussions turn and how my students take the topic to a deeper level. I mentioned how you did that with storytelling in my last memo. In this week's conversation, Victoria mentioned how as teachers in a city as diverse as New York City, we should be using materials recognizable by our students. Victoria shared an array city, which I will show in my video, and I'm going to do that right now. Victoria shared an array city, which I'll show in the video, which I'm showing in the video of this memo, which stimulated Catherine in, there it is, you just got a peek of it. There it is, which, let me get it up and just scroll down. You can see that it's an array. It's a 3 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 3 by 16 maybe, array that has to do with skyscrapers in a city. So Catherine, it stimulated Catherine to mention how even though students may live in the city, they are not familiar with all the diversity that exists. She mentioned how some of her students thought they were in China after they took a trip to Chinatown. Catherine further mentioned that it is a teacher's responsibility to bring culture into the classroom, and I certainly would agree with that. I give another shout out to Victoria. I seem to be doing this a lot. I refer to her as my teaching assistant for sharing several websites that centered on teaching and the video game Minecraft. I have a grandson who is obsessed with the game, and Andrew also mentioned that he has an unmotivated student who stays up until 4 a.m. playing the game with friends. So I think Andrew can definitely benefit from these 4 websites that I've shared in the teaching memo. So go into the teaching memo and check those out. Rachel made a late but interesting post about the Southampton School District adopting curriculum centering around the Shinnecock Indians, which evidently there are still some that live in the Southampton area. So in case you missed it, you can read the story with the link that I posted in the memo. One final comment on a post made by Carissa, which many of you might have missed because it was made late Sunday night, which demonstrates the effect that poverty has on children. When she was teaching, I think it was in North Carolina, one of her 5-year-olds was squirming in his seat and not attending. When she asked him what was the matter, which was a great thing to do, instead of yelling at him and telling him to sit still and pay attention, she was also being observed, I think. He explained that his belly hurt because he was hungry. He had missed free breakfast because the police arrested his father in the middle of the night, and then he had to walk to school with his grandmother, causing him to be late because she didn't have a car. So this is a great example of stress caused by poverty and how we need to take into account that the misbehavior you may be seeing may have nothing to do with a student being insubordinate or disobedient. So thank you, Carissa, for sharing that, and I hope many of you get the feeling of what came about because of that. Talking about session 5, the quiz making discussion board started slow but picked up steam over the weekend. Again, this was a different type of project, so I was not sure how it would work. To say the least, I'm ecstatic. Not only are you writing questions that are aligned with our learning targets, but many of you are writing higher order reasoning questions, which really is nice. I'm also excited that in responding, you are not just copying the responses of your group mates. So I have accomplished 3 things. I have you focused on our learning targets. I have you delving into the reading to create good questions, and you are getting 25 open. If you're responding to 5 of your group mates or classmates, you're getting 5 open book questions to get you deeper in the reading. And if you want an A+, you can do 10. You get or 9 open book questions. So well done. Good stuff. This week starts the beginning of a bit of a slowdown in work. Yay, Dr. Tom. Because I want you to be focused on your lesson plan. It must be in math and can be for any grade pre-K through 6. I've included pre-K because I know several of you work at that level, and I want you to produce something that you can use that is worthwhile. I've created a video presentation for the lesson plan, and I want to remind you that when I made it, Turo had not produced an official lesson plan rubric, but since then they have. So in that video, I talk about the rubric that's in the assessment section of the in the planning section of the EdTPA. Math EdTPA. So just keep that in mind, that there is a different rubric that I'm going to be using this semester. I also want to remind you that you have to use the Turo lesson plan template. So make sure you know where that is. So I don't have that stuff in the course materials. You have to go into additional resources over here on the left. And right at the top, you'll see lesson plan resources. Everything you need is there. Here's the official lesson plan template. Click on that link and download this template. And you can download it by going right over here to the right. This is the official lesson plan rubric from Turo. You can see it's a long one, but it basically is every portion of the lesson plan, what you need, and there are 3 levels: proficient, developing, and emergent. So use that as you design it. There are lesson plan ideas, Engage New York lesson plans. Here are 2 exemplar EdTPA lesson plans: 8 questions for better learners, math menus by Marilyn Burns, teaching videos, which I will be continuing to add to those to show you good examples. And this is a video on engaging English language learners, which we need to talk about in our lesson plans. And this is a Edutopia article on helping students build a growth mindset. So all good stuff that you should use to help you create your lesson plan, starting with learning targets, which I mentioned last week. And I believe that there are resources in last week for creating your learning targets. So that's going to begin. That will be due at the end of session 7, I believe. You'll be uploading your first draft by the end of session 7. So this is going to be a process, what we call assessment for learning. You're going to do your first lesson plan. You're going to get feedback from me. You're going to get feedback from your group mates or other classmates if you feel that's necessary, and then you're going to revise it, and then you're going to post it to a later discussion board, and you'll get more feedback from a different group. I'm going to rearrange the group, so you'll be in a different group. This week we're going to begin to examine some of the hardcore concepts of emerging mathematics. I'm just talking about beginning mathematics because it's like reading. No matter where you encounter students in elementary school, you may find students that are stuck because they haven't mastered these basics. So we all need to have a clear idea of the basics of emerging mathematics. You're going to encounter a lot of vocabulary words in the next few sessions, so keep doing your vocabulary in your own words. You should be filling it out in your own words, of course. Remember to download the hard copy of the quiz first. You're going to have a quiz, and so download that first so you can take it. Then you can go into the discussion board, quiz discussion board, and talk about ones you're confused about. Then you'll take it online the first time, and then talk about the ones that you got wrong. And so you really have 3 shots at taking this quiz. Blackboard will not show you which matching questions you got wrong. So you really need to talk about these on the quiz discussion board. Don't give answers. No wrong answers, no right answers, but just discuss about especially the matching questions, because you won't be sure. You'll just know how many you got right, because it'll tell you got 25 out of 30 or 25 out of 40. I'm not sure what it is. So just be aware of that. So we will be also continuing the problem-solving quiz discussion board, and that will close next Monday morning. So that's it for this week. I'll be grading your discussion board posts, and I will see you in 1 week. Stay warm. The weather's supposed to get warm this week.